Here is another little job that I've picked up from the early days of motoring. This is a drive shaft from the same Renault that I rethreaded the exhaust manifold of. It's a spline shaft with a square knuckle on the end that fits in a square hole in the clutch bell. It seems remarkably small for the job, but I suppose this is a tiny old engine with a tiny amount of power. However, even this small knuckle is too big for the part in question, and it's going to have to be shrunk. Presumably from a later or different model. The square socket is 28mm and the existing knuckle is a bit over 36mm. Don't go by what you see on my vernier or my caliper. I had a 5mm offset. To allow for articulation, the knuckle needs to be bicylindrical. We actually have a much bigger version of the same joint on our old fire engine. As this part is over 100 years old, and I doubt they are still in stock, I decided to plan out the remachining in CAD first. Here you can see an approximation of the current shaft next to what I will be left with after reducing it to fit the clutch socket. This probably makes it a bit clearer what I meant by bicylindrical. The radius of curvature needs to be half the square width, nothing else will work properly. I didn't use CAM for the machining. I drew the cutter positions in the CAD, dimensioned off the tool center positions, and hand-coded a simple toolpath in G-code. I wanted to sneak up on the finished size, so I deliberately offset the toolpath origin and then repeatedly iterated closer until it fitted the clutch. When it measured us close, I started to try the clutch on it to see how it fitted, because the square was somewhat worn, so it wasn't entirely clear exactly what size it needed to be. After machining, the square knuckle has perfectly sharp corners, whereas a square hole does not have perfectly sharp corners, so I decided to knock the corners off to see if I'd improved the fit. It needed doing anyway. One last pass to tiffle off 0.1 and it's time for the final fit. And here's the final result. It works as well as it ever would have done, which is not very well because they're a terrible kind of joint.